My name is Sienna Calder, 32. I learned a long time ago that emptiness can be loud. On the night my life was supposed to open like velvet curtains, my restaurant finally breathing on its own, every table reserved for family sat untouched, white cards blinking like little lies in the corner light. I had placed those name cards myself. Mom, Aunt Karen, Uncle Ed, two cousins who used to steal fries off my plate and swear they were tasting for quality. And of course, my brother, Ryan. 23 seats in total, 23 points of faith. I paid for everything: food, drinks, transportation if they needed it, because I wanted zero excuses. I sent a message that morning in our family group chat. Tonight's the night. Everything I've worked for wouldn't be the same without you. The replies came like confetti. My mother's text was long and flowery, full of pride and emojis. I didn't see a single red flag. At 6 p.m. sharp, the doors opened. By 6:45, we were full. The room hummed, first date energy, soft laughter, plates landing with that subtle ceramic music. I greeted guests, posed for photos, shook hands. Every 10 minutes, I glanced toward those corner tables with the reserved signs, still pristine, still waiting. 7:15, nothing. I told myself they were stuck, that maybe they'd planned a surprise entrance to embarrass me with love. By 8 o'clock, I knew. Staff asked if they should fill the seats. I told them to leave it, my voice steady even when my throat wasn't. The last customers drifted out by 9 o'clock. I disappeared into the back and pretended to do inventory until the silence swallowed the hum. At 9:48 p.m., I turned the key in the lock and stepped into the cooling street. That's when a man in a gray overcoat approached, middle-aged, clean, unflashy, but carrying a kind of gravity that makes people look up. "You opened this?" he asked. "I did," I said. The answer felt like a spine. He shook my hand, firm, certain. "Good work, real good. I've been watching your build for a while, quietly." A small, knowing smile. "We're looking to invest, serious backing, 6 figures if you're interested. Call me tomorrow." He handed me a card and walked off like he didn't want to smother the spark. I stood there longer than I should have, my fingers loosening around air that still remembered his handshake. Then my phone lit up. 89 missed calls. All from Mom. Not a single text. I didn't need a detective to find the truth. I could already hear the chips and cheap beer from Ryan's living room. Poker night. Family tradition when real life asked for less. They had streamed support from home, I would learn, and then drifted into cards and laughter and the kind of forgetfulness that proves what matters and what doesn't. Before I turned the lights off, before I went back inside, I made a decision without tears or thunder. I would hear what they had to say, and I would stop pretending their silence meant nothing. I didn't call back. I didn't even leave the restaurant. I lay down on the leather bench in the back hallway, jacket folded under my head, eyes on the dark ceiling as the cooler hummed a bass line under the city's faraway traffic. It wasn't sleep. It was an exhausted sort of stillness, like my body had pressed pause on my heart so it wouldn't bruise. Morning found me at 9 o'clock a.m. with a dead phone and a dull ache behind my eyes. I plugged the phone in behind the bar. Thought about making coffee, but the machine still smelled like burned espresso from last night, failure's aftertaste. I stared at it until disappointment hardened into something steadier. Not anger, clarity. When the phone powered up, the screen stacked missed calls. Mom, Ryan, 2 cousins, a voicemail from my aunt. I called one person back, Mom. She answered on the first ring like she'd been holding her breath for hours. She didn't ask how it went. She didn't apologize. She launched into an explanation. No, an excuse. They were all at Ryan's place. He told them he'd stream the opening on his TV so they could support from home. That's how she said it. Support from home. It turned into a poker night. They got carried away. It was fun. I listened, my fingers flat on the bar top, feeling the polished wood like a pulse. It was remarkable how easily a night that meant everything to me became their casual hangout. An anecdote, a shrug. She started crying. Said they felt awful. Said they wanted to come by that evening to celebrate, bring cake, take pictures, make a post for Facebook, show support. I said, yeah, sure, let me know when. Then I didn't show up. I didn't even unlock the restaurant that night. If they wanted a photo, they could take one with their reflection. People like to call this pettiness. I call it boundaries arriving late but dressed to stay. I spent that evening alone, phone off, lights off, walking the dining room with only the street lamps for company. The reserved cards sat in a drawer in the back, all those names perfectly printed as if ink could conjure presence. I slid the drawer shut and felt the latch catch. When I finally turned my phone on again, there were more messages. I did not open a single one. Instead, I opened the front door to the morning air and let the city's ordinary noises wash away the stale perfume of yesterday. Here's where I tell you something you should underline. When the people who claim to love you most make you smallest on the night you become who you are, believe them. In the quiet, I thought of Marcus. Not there that night because we had agreed he'd arrive late, after the rush, to avoid any whispers of favoritism among staff. He had once told me, "Conditional love always feels like a loan that comes with hidden interest." I hadn't wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in loyalty like a full pantry, always something on the shelf if you need it, but last night I checked the cupboard. It was bare. The next morning, the door chimed, and Martin, my parents' neighbor, the retired man who always knows a little too much, walked in, grinning like a secret had asked to be told. He congratulated me on the investor, said he'd seen the handshake from across the street while walking his dog, heard everything. I told him nothing was confirmed, that it was private, that I wasn't ready to talk. He swore he wouldn't say a word, then asked if I'd consider naming a dish after his dog. I smiled because sometimes absurdity is a mercy. 2 hours later, my cousin Jessica texted, "Heard about the investor. Amazing. So happy for you." 5 minutes after that, "Ryan, let's talk. We've got ideas. This could be big for all of us." There it was, for all of us. By afternoon, messages multiplied. Aunt suggestions, uncle franchising fantasies, a cousin asking if I had openings in case she needed a change of pace. Nobody mentioned poker night. Nobody said, "We're sorry." The amnesia was immaculate. I didn't respond. I opened a new spreadsheet. Not a menu, not staffing, a list. Names, dates, what was said, what wasn't. Not to weaponize, to remember. Because memory, like cash flow, decides who survives growth. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Mom. She wanted to drop by that night with cake, take photos, celebrate properly this time. I stared at the messages, at the cadence of her guilt masquerading as tradition. I placed the phone face down and listened to the kitchen's empty metal breathe. I didn't unlock the door. Later, in the dim of the closed dining room, I stood where the family tables had waited and imagined all of them arriving together, laughing, hugging, taking over the corner like a warm storm. What would that have changed? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe I wouldn't have noticed the investor's overcoat or the way his handshake steadied my own. But they didn't come, and because they didn't, I learned the sound of my own resolve. It was quiet. It was firm. It was mine. The next morning bled into noon before I realized I hadn't eaten. I sat behind the counter, nursing cold coffee that tasted like burnt promises. Outside, the city carried on, people with groceries, delivery trucks, school buses, the kind of normalcy that doesn't pause for anyone's heartbreak. That's when Martin appeared again. Same grin, same too loud knock on the glass. "Morning, superstar," he said, waving through the door. "You're famous now. Please tell me you didn't—" "Just mentioned it to a few folks at the cafe. They're thrilled for you. Said you deserve it after everything your family—" He stopped himself, but the pause said enough. By that afternoon, my phone started lighting up again. Jessica had posted something vague on Facebook. "So proud of my cousin, the businesswoman in the family." A few heart emojis, 10 comments. None from anyone who'd been missing at those empty tables. I told myself to breathe, but every ping, every message carried that same subtext. Now that it's real, we're in this together. At 4 p.m., the restaurant door swung open. Aunt Karen, hair done, pie boxes in hand. "I was just in the area," she said, setting down a coconut cream and a banana pie. "You must be so proud. This place is stunning. God, your mother must be over the moon." "She hasn't been by," I said. Karen smiled like she hadn't heard me. "Well, she's just giving you space. Anyway, I was thinking, brunch menu? People love a good Eggs Benedict. And my neighbor's daughter, she's 16, very responsible, loves food, could use a part-time job." I blinked. "We're not hiring." "Oh, sure." She waved it off, but her eyes lingered on the tables like she could already picture her name printed on them. "Just thought I'd mention it. You know me, always here if you need anything. Remember that." When she left, the pies sat there like props in a play I didn't audition for. I didn't eat them. I don't eat either flavor. 2 days later, Ryan showed up. No text, no warning, just strolled in like the place belonged to him. "Hey, sis," he said, giving me one of those long hugs that used to mean safety. "You killed it. Heard the investors serious." I stayed behind the counter, polishing glasses that were already spotless. "Who told you?" He shrugged. "Word travels. Martin, maybe. Doesn't matter. Point is, this could be huge for us." "For us?" He grinned, pacing. "I've been thinking expansion. Bigger space. 2 stories. I could handle the logistics. You focus on the kitchen. Equal stakes." I didn't respond. He filled the silence anyway. "Look, I know we've had our differences, but this is legacy stuff for the family." I could hear Marcus's voice in my head from weeks ago, calm and unwavering. The moment they smell success, they'll rename it family. When Ryan left, I just stared at the door. His cologne still hung in the air, all confidence and entitlement. That night, I stayed late again. I opened the drawer of name cards, each one a ghost of expectation. I stacked them neatly, pressed the drawer closed, and whispered, "Not this time." The following morning, Mom appeared. "Table 6, already sipping coffee like it was her spot." She waved me over with the same hand she used to signal waiters when I was a kid. "I love this place," she said. "Has good energy." "Thanks." She smiled, pulled out a spiral notebook, and flipped it open. "Okay, don't laugh. I've been brainstorming." "Brainstorming what?" "Ways to grow. Loyalty programs, t-shirts with your face, maybe a mom's favorite dish section." She looked up, proud. "If you're serious about building this long term, you'll need a team you trust. Family." "Who?" I asked, already knowing. "Ryan, obviously, and your cousins. They've got ideas. And maybe Aunt Karen in HR? Keep the money in the family. That's how legacies start." I nodded slowly. "You've been busy." She mistook my composure for agreement. "It's what families do, sweetheart. We show up for each other." I could have said it. I could have reminded her about poker night, about how no one showed up. But I didn't. I let her finish her coffee, leave a $5 bill on the table like a stranger, and walk out satisfied. After she left, I stared at that bill. $5 to buy back forgiveness. I left it there. The call came 2 days later. The investor wanted to meet. Downtown office. This time, there were 2 men in suits waiting with him. They handed me a folder. Licensing, expansion, a second location. The number wasn't 6 figures anymore. It was edging towards 7. I didn't say yes on the spot. I waited 2 days, sat in the quiet of my restaurant, and thought about everything. The empty chairs, the unanswered calls, the pies, the notepad, the false pride. And when I finally said yes, I did it not because of the money, but because for once, a stranger saw value in what my own family never did. When I told them, the celebration exploded, but not for me. They were celebrating themselves. Aunt Karen texted about planning a family tasting night. Uncle Ed asked about franchise opportunities. Ryan sent, "Proud of you, we did it." We. The word curdled. That night, I met Marcus for dinner. He listened quietly as I told him everything. How the same people who disappeared now wanted in. He reached across the table, took my hand. "You don't owe them a seat just because they built the table you outgrew." I smiled. "You always know what to say." He squeezed my fingers. "Promise me something. When the time comes, you won't explain yourself. Just act." "I promise." And I meant it. Because deep down, I already knew. The next time I saw my family, I wouldn't be asking for their love. I'd be serving them their consequences. A week later, just before closing, Ryan showed up again. This time, not alone. His wife trailed behind him, and with them was another woman I didn't recognize. She looked uneasy, like she'd been dragged into something. "Got a minute?" Ryan asked, smiling too easily. "Make it quick," I said, wiping down a spotless counter. He laughed, hands raised. "Relax, we come in peace." He glanced at the quiet woman. "This is Talia. She works with me on some stuff." Marcus's words from that dinner echoed in my head. "The time will come. Don't explain. Just act." Ryan cleared his throat. "Listen, I owe you an apology." I froze, cloth in midair. "That's so?" He nodded, though there wasn't much conviction in it. "That poker night, it was my idea." I said nothing. "I told everyone not to go," he continued. "Said it was a soft opening, that you'd be too busy to notice. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just..." He paused, eyes shifting away. "I was tired of everyone treating you like the golden one." There it was, the truth finally crawling into daylight, ugly and squinting. His wife stepped in. He didn't mean it, Sienna. He'd been drinking. He was frustrated. Ryan ignored her. I'm not proud of it, but I gave you that restaurant idea, remember? I said you should go for it, that you had the drive. So in a way, it's kind of our thing. You and me. We built this together. I set the cloth down. You told everyone not to come. He nodded once. Yeah. And you want, what, forgiveness? He hesitated, then took a deep breath. I want fairness, a stake. I'm not asking for money, just equity. 5%, maybe 10. It's not much, considering. I actually laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make him blink. Considering what? He spread his hands. That I helped start it. That it's family. You know, if we work together, we could take this whole thing national. Everyone wins. His wife smiled weakly. We could help, Sienna. You don't have to do it all alone. I looked at her. Really looked. Her nails were perfect. Her eyes darted everywhere but mine. Talia, the quiet one, seemed ready to vanish through the floor. She probably didn't even want to be here. Ryan mistook my silence for negotiation. I'm not trying to take anything from you, I swear. I just think it's time we shared the spotlight. You've always had the what? I asked. He smiled faintly. The shine. That word hung there, cheap and heavy. I leaned forward. You want a piece of what you ignored. You want ownership in something you didn't believe in until it was profitable. That's not family, Ryan. That's strategy. He blinked, caught off guard. You don't mean that. Oh, I do. He stepped closer. You're not better than us, Sienna. Don't forget that. I looked him straight in the eyes. I already forgot the night you didn't show up. The air between us turned to glass. He clenched his jaw, but didn't say another word. His wife tugged at his arm. Let's go. He stayed another second, just enough to convince himself he still had control. And then he walked out, the bell over the door jingling like an afterthought. Talia followed, glancing back once before disappearing into the night. When the silence returned, I stood there for a long time. Then I walked into my office, turned on the printer, and started typing. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't even a letter of anger. It was a statement, a line drawn in ink. By midnight, the papers sat stacked neatly on my desk, sealed in white envelopes, one for every name on that old reservation list. I leaned back in my chair, staring at them. My hands didn't shake, not this time. The next morning, I sent a single message in the family group chat. Dinner at the restaurant this Friday. Big news to share. Wouldn't be the same without you. Within minutes, the replies rolled in. Can't wait. So proud of you, Sienna. We knew it. Family always wins together. I watched the notifications pile up, my reflection faintly visible on the screen. My lips curved, not in joy, in recognition. This was how it always worked. They built fantasy castles out of my effort, then called it heritage. Not this time. This time, I'd serve them the truth, cold, plated with precision. By Thursday, everyone had confirmed. They'd even coordinated outfits. Mom's old pearls, the floral perfume she wore for weddings, matching scarves for the aunts, Uncle Ed bringing his old camera to document the big moment. Ryan texted last. We're all so proud of you. This is our night. Our night. When Friday came, I arrived early. The tables were polished to mirror shine. The kitchen prepped the best of everything. No shortcuts, no restraint. If this was going to be an ending, it would end in elegance. Marcus stopped by before opening, catching me mid-checklist. You ready? I nodded, more than I've ever been. He smiled, kissed my forehead. You're not doing this to hurt them. You're doing this to free yourself. I know. As he left, the first wave of family voices rose outside the glass door. Laughter, perfume, entitlement wrapped in affection. I straightened my jacket, smoothed the papers, and whispered under my breath, let the show begin. They arrived just after 7, dressed like they were stepping into a celebration they believed belonged to them. Mom led the parade, pearls gleaming beneath the soft restaurant lights, that familiar floral perfume wafting ahead of her like a signature. Aunt Karen followed, cheeks blushed, carrying a bottle of mid-range wine wrapped in shiny paper. Behind them, the cousins trailed in, snapping selfies by the chalkboard wall that read, "Thank you for being part of the journey." They had no idea what that sentence was about to mean. Ryan came last, hand protectively resting on his wife's stomach. She was expecting. And I noticed how he looked around like he owned the place. That confidence wasn't new. It was inherited, fed by years of being told that everything I built somehow belonged to us. The dining room shimmered with laughter and noise, silverware clinking, voices overlapping. I stayed back, letting them settle, watching their easy comfort in a space they once dismissed as too risky. Where's the guest of honor? Mom called across the room, smiling like this was some family reunion. Right here, I said, stepping out from the kitchen. Applause broke out, half-hearted, performative, but loud enough to echo. "Look at her!" Aunt Karen exclaimed. "Our girl finally made it!" I forced a smile. "Glad you all could come." I told the kitchen to serve everything: appetizers, mains, desserts, and bottles of wine. I wanted no shortcuts, no excuses. I wanted them full, content, comfortable. Because people listen best when they least expect the world to shift beneath them. They ate. They praised the food, toasted to family success, clinked glasses, took pictures. Ryan even stood to make a small speech. "To Sienna," he said, glass raised. "The best of us, and proof that when one of us wins, we all win." The table cheered, the word we tasted like vinegar in my mouth. When the plates were cleared and the laughter softened, I walked to the center of the room. The stack of white envelopes in my hands suddenly felt weightless. "I have something for each of you," I said. "Something important." Conversations dimmed. Forks paused midair. I handed them out one by one. Mom, Ryan, Aunt Karen, Uncle Ed. The cousins passed them down the table, whispering guesses. Ryan tore his open first. The smile on his face froze halfway. His eyes scanned the page once, twice, and then he looked up. "This isn't," he began, but the words died in his throat. The letter was short, one page, direct, final. It stated that the business was mine alone, entirely. The investor deal was real, signed, sealed. The expansion was underway. There would be no partners, no family hires, no legacy shares, no consulting roles, and no future involvement of any kind. At the bottom, one exception, a one-time gift of $1,000 for Ryan's unborn child, not for him, not for them, just for the baby. Because that child hadn't chosen this. Mom's voice trembled first. "Sienna, what is this?" I looked her in the eyes. The truth, written down so no one can twist it later. Silence spread like spilled wine. Aunt Karen recovered fastest. "You're joking, right? This is cruel." "Cruel?" I asked. "You all skipped the most important night of my life for a poker game. You lied. Then you came back only when there was money on the table. Cruel was that." Mom's lips quivered. "We made a mistake." "No," I said, calm but unshaken. "You made a choice." Uncle Ed chuckled, that dismissive sound he always used when he didn't understand something. "You'll regret this, kiddo. Money comes and goes, but family—" "Family showed me exactly how much it costs," I interrupted, "and I'm done paying for it." Ryan sat there motionless. His wife whispered something, but he didn't move. He just stared at the letter, eyes unfocused. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "You can finish your meal. But after tonight, please don't come by, don't call, don't ask for favors. This chapter's over." Mom began to cry quietly, then louder, until the sound filled the room. "You're breaking us apart!" I looked at her, not with anger, but with clarity. You can't break something that was never whole. Aunt Karen muttered under her breath, ungrateful. I ignored her. That's when I noticed a familiar silhouette by the entrance. Martin. He wasn't invited, but of course he came. Probably saw the cars, the lights, the noise. He lingered near the doorway, unsure whether to stay or leave. I met his eyes, then turned back to my family. "You've all had your say for years. Tonight was mine." And with that, I placed my envelope stack on the table's center, nodded once, and walked out through the back door into the cool night air. Behind me, the noise didn't follow. Just the faint murmur of disbelief, the sound of a meal going cold. I didn't look back. By the time I returned the next morning, the restaurant was spotless, the tables cleared, the chairs aligned, no notes, no thank you. Just silence. The kind that feels like both punishment and reward. And somehow, it was exactly what I needed. The next few days passed in an eerie calm, like the eye of a storm that had finally moved on. The family group chat, once buzzing with birthday reminders, forwarded prayers, and Ryan's endless poker invites, went silent. No texts, no calls, not even a meme. At first, I half expected retaliation, a guilt-soaked message from Mom, a teary voicemail about how families shouldn't fight over money, maybe even an apology disguised as advice. But nothing came. They vanished. And in that silence, I found something I didn't recognize at first. Peace. The restaurant flourished. After the dinner fallout, word spread faster than gossip ever could. Locals filled every table. Food bloggers posted reviews. Even the investor, Mr. Collins, moved faster than expected, pushing the expansion ahead by months. The second location opened before the end of the quarter. Then came the third. Each new space felt lighter, freer, untouched by the fingerprints of people who had once tried to own what they didn't build. I promoted from within. My sous chef from the early days now ran the kitchen. The first delivery driver I'd hired, the one who once biked through snow to make a shift, now handled operations. Real loyalty, not the kind that vanished when convenience called. One afternoon, as I was signing papers for the new branch, a plain envelope arrived. No return address, no stamps, just my name and handwriting I could recognize blindfolded. Mom's. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a photo. Ryan and me, maybe 7 or 8, sitting on the front steps of our old house, ice cream dripping down our wrists, sunburned and laughing. Taped to the back was a note written in her slanted cursive. Don't forget where you came from. That was all. No apology, no explanation, just nostalgia, weaponized into guilt. I sat with it for a long time, the weight of it strange in my hands. I could have ripped it up, burned it, sent it back. But instead, I slipped it into a file drawer with the contracts and permits, because it was part of the record now, a reminder of what came before and how far I'd come without them. Weeks later, a friend from the old neighborhood called, said Ryan was struggling. His wife had lost her job. Mortgage payments were behind. Mom was telling anyone who'd listen that I'd changed since the money. I didn't respond, didn't gloat, didn't correct the story, because the truth didn't need defending anymore. Marcus noticed my quiet. We were walking home one night after closing when he said, "You've been quieter lately." I smiled faintly, maybe because I finally ran out of things to explain. He nodded. That's what freedom sounds like. And he was right. For years, I'd chased their approval, built milestones like shrines, hoping they'd show up, clap, care. But now, I didn't need to prove anything. Not to Ryan, not to Mom, not to anyone. What I built stood on its own. Solid, breathing, alive. No poker nights, no group chats, no excuses. Just work, purpose, and peace. Sometimes at closing, when the lights dim and the last chairs are stacked, I still glance toward that corner where the family tables used to sit, the ones that stayed empty on opening night. And every time, I whisper the same thing under my breath. Thank you for not showing up. Because if they had, I might never have learned what it means to finally stand alone and not be lonely.